Today I'm trying out 4 super fast slow cooker recipes. I think summer is maybe one of the best times to use your slow cooker, even if it's not the first season that maybe comes to mind when you think of a slow cooker. Slow cookers, I think, hearty, warm meals to have during those colder months, but the summer is a great time for slow cooking because it doesn't heat up your kitchen if you use an electric slow cooker. And that way you can kind of start something in the morning, do your summer activities, keep cool, and then have dinner on the table. So today I'm cooking from Gooseberry Patch, super fast, slow cooking, and I'm aware this is not a vintage cookbook. I'm stepping a little bit outside of what I would normally do because I absolutely love this cookbook and I wanted to share it with you all. And yes, I said 4 recipes. You are getting 4 recipes today because I just couldn't choose. I had it narrowed down to 4 and I couldn't narrow it down anymore. I'm making down-home chicken and noodles, and out of the 4 slow cooker recipes that I'm making for this video, this is the one that I have tried and I have made more than once, and I had to share it because I really love it. It's so easy, but it's really tasty. I think if you're a fan of chicken and noodles, you're really gonna like this one, and you are going to enjoy how fast and how simple it is to put together. I am gonna be making a smaller quantity and using my 2-quart slow cooker. I'm cutting the recipe in half. So first I have just over 8 ounces of boneless, skinless chicken breasts. These were from my freezer. I let them thaw overnight in the refrigerator. And sprinkle with a little bit of salt and pepper. Good start. And next, good old cream of chicken soup. Because I'm cutting the recipe in half, I just need the 1 can. But if you're making a full recipe, you would need 2 cans. And I'm gonna scrape this into my slow cooker. I have this very long skinny spatula that I love to use when I'm trying to scrape out soup cans like this. And I bought it at my favorite kitchen store in Saugatuck, Michigan, the Butler Pantry. If I can find a similar one, I will link it. I've had this one for years though, and I use it a lot. Spread that over the top of your chicken. And that's actually it for now. This recipe is cooked in a couple of different stages. So this is kind of like phase 1, and all it was chicken, salt and pepper, and a little cream of chicken soup. So I'm gonna cook this on low for 6 hours, and then we'll move on to the next step. There's a couple of more ingredients that you do add to this a little bit later. And I need to take the chicken out of the slow cooker and shred it. So we're gonna do that. It is hot, hot, hot in there. It's actually kind of shredding in the slow cooker now that I'm doing this. I can't even pick it up. I'll show you how I shred this piece, but I'm kind of shredding it in there with my tongs. It is completely cooked. It is easy to shred. We're gonna move some ingredients. So, I mean, you've probably done something like this before. I just like to do it with 2 forks. Look how easy that's coming apart. It's really good. Oh, it smells good too. So just do that with all of the chicken that you've just cooked. So once you've shredded that chicken, go ahead and add it back to your slow cooker. Like I said, some of the chicken I was able to shred inside the slow cooker, so just do it however you want to do it. And to this, I'm adding 1 cup of chicken broth and 8 ounces of wide egg noodles that I've cooked. I cooked mine for a little less than the package directions stated because you are going to put these in the slow cooker and then you're gonna let them heat through for about a half an hour. So, they are still gonna have a little bit of a chance to soften up. So I would just cook them on the al dente side. Although this slow cooker looked a little empty with just a couple chicken breasts and a can of soup in it, it's pretty full now. See, it's full of noodles, full of chicken, full of goodness. So just stir that to combine. Everything's well incorporated. So once everything is well combined, you just want to cover it back up and let it cook on low for another 30 minutes until everything is just heated through. So there we have it, a nice big hearty bowl of chicken and noodles. It is exactly what I want. I know what this tastes like because I've made this recipe before, but I really like it, so I'm gonna taste it anyway. That is delicious and really easy. So this dish is surprisingly versatile. I have made this as chicken and noodles. That's how I made it today, and it's incredible. It's absolutely delicious. It's super easy. But you can also just make the chicken in the sauce. So, make your chicken, shred it up, and then add your chicken broth, right? And let that heat through. And now you have chicken gravy. So you can take that, you can eat it over noodles, you can eat it over mashed potatoes, you can eat it over biscuits, chicken and gravy over biscuits. We had that at school a lot actually when I was a kid. and it freezes really well that way. So that's a couple of other ways that you can actually make this dish and make it into something else. Make that chicken gravy without the noodles, freeze it, and then you have a really, really quick meal that you can just kind of like whip up on days that you need something really fast. I'm trying this recipe for easy family style corn. And I gotta tell you, this dish just looks so irresistible to me. I thought, wow, I think this is gonna be absolutely delicious. I have to try it. Like it really caught me. I am gonna be cutting this recipe in half. So I've already coated the inside of my crock in my slow cooker with some vegetable oil. You can use nonstick cooking spray as well. And this is my 2-quart slow cooker. This is a great size for a small household, or if you're doing just like a side dish or something like that. So I'll link it in the description down below if you're interested. But you know, I've coated the inside of this crock. So I need to add 12 ounces of frozen corn. And I've got my other ingredients here in my little tray. I have 4 ounces of cream cheese that I've cubed to the best of my ability. 2 tablespoons of butter, also cubed. A tablespoon of sugar. Half of a teaspoon of salt. And I have lastly a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Most of the recipes in this book have 5 ingredients or less. Technically this one had 6 if you count the salt and pepper. So now all I need to do is stir that together. Oh my gosh, I know this is gonna taste good. Do you ever try recipes where you're like, yes, I know, I just have a hunch? I think that's pretty well combined. So now I'm gonna cover it and I'm gonna turn it on low. I'm gonna turn this around. The recipe says to cook this for 4 hours on low, stirring once halfway through. I always like to just keep an eye on these things just because, you know, I've never made this recipe before. It's a smaller quantity. It could cook a little bit faster. So I can't wait to try this in a few hours. I ended up letting this cook in the slow cooker for 4 hours. So the time that they gave in the recipe, cook for 4 hours on low, that worked perfectly for me, even with my smaller slow cooker and smaller amount of food. Your mileage may vary, but I'm really excited to give this a taste. I had a hunch that this would be delicious and I was correct. This is like the best cream corn you've had in your life elevated, I think. I mean, that's kind of how I would describe it. It has just a touch of sweetness that really complements the corn itself. It's creamy, but like not too overly rich. I think you could change up the seasonings in this if you want to, but I think it's kind of perfect the way that it is, like right straight from the recipe. I don't always think to make side dishes in the slow cooker. You know, I think a lot of people kind of think of it as like more of a main dish thing, you know, stews and soups and roasts and stuff like that. But don't forget that you can use your slow cooker to make side dishes. Let's say you're gonna grill or something, maybe grill some chicken, maybe grill some burgers, but you want a side dish that's not gonna take you a ton of work at the last minute and that's not gonna heat up your kitchen. That's when something like this would come in and save the day, basically, you know? I'm trying a recipe for Greek potatoes, and I love those lemony garlic Greek style potatoes that you can sometimes find in restaurants. And that's what I'm hoping for with this recipe, because if I can make them here at home, like I'm in big trouble. No, they are absolutely delicious. And this recipe is so simple, so fingers crossed it turns out well. I am cutting this recipe in half, so I am going to be using my little slow cooker here. Perfect size. I'm telling you again, it's the perfect size for a smaller amount of food or a smaller household. I have 4 potatoes here. These are just russets that I have washed, peeled, and cut into wedges. So I'm gonna add those to my slow cooker. Oh yeah, I gotta let you look at this. This is perfect for like a half recipe, these potatoes. I mean, it fits. The fit is perfect. Anyway, to that I am adding 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1/2 cup of water. I have the juice of half a lemon. I juiced this with my tiny juicer. I have 1/2 tablespoon of oregano, and it says salt and pepper to taste. So I'm just gonna put in a little pinch of salt here and my pepper. I need to stir that to combine before I add the final ingredient. So let's do that. I just wanna get everything good and coated with the oil, with the oregano, etc. All right, so I'm gonna leave my spatula in there for now because I have something else to add, and that is a couple of cloves of garlic. And I'm just gonna mince those right into the slow cooker. Because I'm cutting this recipe in half, You know, I was supposed to use 1.5 cloves of garlic. I'm using 2. I think garlic is one of those things you can kind of measure with your heart a little bit. So I'm gonna give that another stir. And something that caught my eye about this recipe is that there's a couple of different options for cooking times. You can either cook this on low for 6 to 8 hours, or you can cook it on high for 2 to 4 hours. I'm gonna try the high for 2 to 4 hours, just to see how it is. So I kind of like that little bit of flexibility, you know, maybe it depends on how much time you really have. And it does say that if the potatoes start to get dry, you can add up to a 1/2 cup more of water, or a 1/4 cup because I'm cutting it in half. So I'm gonna cover this. I can never get the hang of doing this backwards. I'm gonna put it on high and I'll come back in 2 to 4 hours and see how they're doing. We got some potatoes. I ended up cooking these for 3 hours. And I think it really depends on the type of potato that you use, probably how thick you cut the wedges. So I used russet potatoes and I kept them in pretty big pieces. 3 hours was about right for me in my little 2-quart slow cooker. It might be a little bit different for you, just depending. Did not add the extra water. It said you could add extra water if your potatoes were looking dry. I didn't need it. And once I put these in the dish, I did put a little bit of the liquid. I spooned a little bit of the liquid on top, just for some added flavor. They are a nice texture. They're not totally falling apart, but they're not hard. So fork tender, I guess. Oh, those are good. Yeah, the lemon really comes through. I love that flavor. I like them this way. I think some people would say they maybe need a little bit more salt. It was just add the salt and pepper to taste, so I could add a little bit more salt to these. Oh, how nice though. I love the flavor on these. You could add more spices if you want, but really I think keeping it simple is kind of the way to go with these. So this next recipe is pretty exciting because it's basically a 3-ingredient main dish. And who doesn't love that? I mean, just a few ingredients that you toss into the slow cooker. All right, so this is my 6-quart slow cooker. I am making the full recipe for this one. And I didn't even say the name of the recipe, did I? It is teriyaki beef. So this couldn't be simpler. I have an 8-ounce can of crushed pineapple with the juice that I'm gonna pour in here. And I have 1/3 cup of teriyaki marinade. This is the one that we like. This is the Kikkoman less sodium teriyaki marinade and sauce. Just use whatever you have or what you like. This is just the one that we keep in the house, basically. And I'm just gonna gently kind of like stir that together a little bit here. And I have a 1.5 pound boneless chuck steak. This was on sale at Meijer this week for $5.99 a pound. So pretty economical too. You're just gonna place that on top. I debated whether or not I actually wanted to cut this into pieces, and it doesn't say to do that in the recipe. So I'm like, you know what? We're gonna cook it this way. If it falls apart, it falls apart. I don't know. Never tried this recipe, so we'll see. That's pretty much it though. That's all that goes in here. So now I just need to cover this, and this cooks on high for 2.5 to 3.5 hours. So I'll be checking on it a little bit here and there, since I've never made this before. Just have my little plate here because I'm not quite ready for dinner, but I do need to taste this for the camera. I did microwave some rice. I have those like rice pouches. Yes, I know how to make rice, but those things are very convenient when you just need like 2 servings of rice. So I'm gonna taste it. Let's taste it. It smells really good, by the way. Okay, so it's kind of like a little bit of a different take on a pot roast. I wouldn't say that it's like overly teriyaki flavored. There's just a touch of sweetness from that pineapple that is really nice. That is very good. It was so easy just with like the 3 ingredients. If you wanted to jazz this up even more, it tastes delicious as is, but if you wanted to add some things to it, I'd say maybe a little bit of ginger, maybe some garlic, and if you wanted to throw some like peppers and onions in there, you know, make it more of a complete meal with like vegetables and stuff, you could definitely do that. But it tastes really good as is, and it was super easy to put together. Super Fast Slow Cooking was published in 2008, and it is the very first Gooseberry Patch cookbook that I've cooked from for this channel, mostly because they didn't start publishing books until 1992. So, you know, they don't have anything that's like older than that, but I do have that very first Gooseberry Patch cookbook in my collection. Some of you may be familiar with Gooseberry Patch. It actually started off as a mail order catalog back in 1984. They published their first cookbook back in 1992, and then eventually in 2009, they discontinued the catalog and they transitioned solely to publishing. They're based right here in Ohio, in Dublin, and they crowdsource the recipes. So they ask people to submit their very best recipes, and they may just get published in the cookbook. And I think that's why there are so many good recipes in this book. I'm gonna make a bold statement. I think this is my current favorite slow cooker cookbook, just because it takes minimal ingredients. You can put things together very quickly and then just kind of like walk away, let it go, let it do its thing. If you are new to slow cooking, or one of your friends is new to slow cooking, or maybe you want to get them a gift or something, like, I think this is a great book. Just to give you a little peek inside, you know, they have some very cute little sketches in here. The recipe appears at the top, and usually there's maybe like a little piece of advice or a little verse or anecdote or whatever. This one says, try spooning any favorite sandwich filling into a pita pocket, less mess. Resist the urge to lift the lid of your slow cooker to take a peek. Lifting the lid lets out the heat and makes cooking time longer. That is a good piece of advice. I'm always very tempted to check and see like what's going on in there, but you know, you don't want to do it too much when you're using a slow cooker. So the recipes I made today, you got 4, okay? Usually I stick to 3 unless I'm doing a full day of meals, but I could not decide. The last 2 recipes I was trying to decide between were those potatoes and the corn, and I was like, you know what, let's just do both of them. I have the time because these recipes don't take a lot of time to put together, so it was kind of perfect. But the first recipe I made today was down-home chicken and noodles, and that was the very first recipe I ever cooked from this book when I first got it. Because I love chicken and noodles, and it's just like a very delicious, hearty kind of meal. It's very, very homey, very like, it's like the ultimate comfort food, I think. Like chicken and noodles, mac and cheese, that kind of thing. I immediately liked this one the very first time I tried it because it is so easy and because the results do taste like you have been cooking all day. Technically, you have been cooking for hours, but it's very hands-off. You just kind of like put everything together and there you are. This recipe was very versatile. All of the recipes are versatile in different ways, and I'll kind of get into that as I go along. So this particular recipe I mentioned, I've made it as chicken and noodles, but I also like to make it as just like chicken gravy, because then you have the chicken gravy and you can serve it in a few different ways, like whatever you can think of really. You can put it over noodles. You can have chicken and gravy over mashed potatoes or biscuits. Whatever you want. You can get a little bit creative with it. All of these recipes are trying to stay under 5 ingredients. So I think, you know, you could definitely add vegetables to this. You could have peas and carrots. I think that would be a really, really good addition if you wanted to throw those in the slow cooker, maybe like at the same time that you shred the chicken and then add the rest of the chicken broth and the noodles and stuff. So you could add extra vegetables to it if you want, but it's delicious as is. And I think that kind of makes it a crowd pleaser also. You know, maybe you want to make it the way that it is with no vegetables in it and then serve the vegetables on the side, so that if you have kids, or maybe you have some like selective eaters in your family or whoever you're serving that don't like vegetables or don't like those particular vegetables, and that way everybody's happy. It can be really hard, I know, to plan meals that please everyone, but I think that particular recipe is a good one, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it. The second recipe I made was easy family style corn, and I just kind of knew this was going to be a hit, with me at least. It's like creamed corn, but even more delicious, I think. It's like, that cream cheese, the little bit of sugar, the salt and pepper, simple ingredients, stuff I mostly have on hand most of the time, but it's such a good side dish. And one thing I wanted to mention, every single recipe reheated well, because this was like an entire like week of lunches for me, basically, between all 4 of these dishes. So the corn itself, you know, I would just microwave a little bit of it and it was delicious. I ended up mixing it with some black beans that I had. Oh my gosh. So I had the corn mixed with black beans and I ate it over a little bit of rice for lunch one day, and that was so good. It was so delicious. So again, like a great side dish, but you can kind of like change it up and put it with other things. And I think it would also be really good with jalapenos, right? Like add a little bit of spice in there, maybe some cilantro. I think you could customize the flavor a little bit if you wanted to. Again, really delicious as is though, just like exactly as it is written in the cookbook, but highly customizable, which I like. The third recipe I made in this video was for Greek potatoes. Again, these were delicious. These reheated well. Like, I feel like I'm just repeating the same things for every recipe, but it's all true. I liked the recipe as written. I think you could add more like lemon and garlic if you wanted to. It had those really delicious flavors in them, but if you wanted more intensity, I guess, you could definitely up those. You know, I ate some the day that I made them. I reheated them, and then I ate them with another recipe that I'm going to talk about next as a lunch. I also had these for breakfast. So I took the cooked Greek potatoes and I kind of like diced them up a little bit and then I browned them in a skillet and had them with some scrambled eggs, and it was a delicious breakfast. Oh, I would do that again. So you can make a batch of these and kind of like use them in different ways if you want to. And finally, the teriyaki beef. I really loved that one too. And it didn't have like an intense teriyaki flavor to it. Not really. It was more of a like sweet and savory pot roast, but not extreme. You know, I thought it was going to be more like the kind of teriyaki beef you might get at a Chinese restaurant, like that kind of flavor, but it wasn't. I like that too, but this was really tasty. And again, I reheated it. It reheated beautifully. I ate it as is. I ate some over rice, ate it with some of the potatoes, and then today, with the last little bit of it, I should have taken a photo. I made a really delicious pressed sandwich with it. So I took some of the shredded beef and I had a bolillo roll that I kind of like, I put some cheese and I put the beef and I toasted it and pressed it in a skillet, and it was so good. I like doing pot roast sandwiches anyway, like when I have leftover pot roast. This one was also really delicious, even with that slightly like different flavored beef. Now I know not everyone likes pineapple. This recipe used crushed pineapple, and I gotta say, like the flavor of the pineapple is not super intense when it comes to the beef. It's just lends like a very slight sweetness. So if it's like the pineapple texture that you really, really hate, I think you could go pineapple juice, maybe. I think having something that's like a little bit acidic is important in this recipe. So if you don't like crushed pineapple, if you can't take it, I'd say go pineapple juice. Try that. If you're really wanting to give this a try, which you should because it is great. Would also be delicious with a little bit of extra ginger and garlic, I think. Oh, and the one thing I forgot to mention in the video, so I will say it here, the cook time on that for me was 3.5 hours. I originally set it for 3 hours and I tried it and I could tell it just needed, you know, it was cooked through, but it still just needed like a little extra time to kind of get really tender. So for me, 3.5 hours in a 6-quart slow cooker was perfect. So I hope you liked these slow cooker recipes that I shared with you. I will be doing another slow cooker video in October for Crocktober. That one will be vintage, but I thought maybe you could use some ideas for your meal plans as we end the summer and go into fall. If you love slow cooker recipes, I have an entire playlist and I will link it in the description down below. I am on Patreon, so if you'd like to support me over there, I'll leave a link so that you can do that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.